This is Jim of Shiloh Hall, and today I want to cover some scriptures in Romans 9 related to who Israel is and their condition and their situation, and then how does what we've come to understand to be the church, which is the ecclesia, which is really just the called out ones, the separated ones, how we have come to understand those Gentiles fit into the idea of this ecclesia and Israel, because obviously the predominant idea in the world today is that the church is pretty much a Gentile church, and that the new covenant is to a Gentile church more so than a Israel. If what we would call Jew or somebody of Israeli heritage wants to join the covenant people, they join the church. That's why you have Messianic Jews. They're joining the church rather than those of the Gentiles who seek to join the ecclesia, actually joining Israel in their comments. So that's what this passage is all about, and that's what I'm going to address. So let me just start with Romans 9 here, and we'll just start from the beginning. Number 9, verse 1. I speak the truth in Mashiach. I do not lie. My conscience also bearing me witness in the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the Holy Spirit, that I have great sadness and continual grief in my heart. For I myself could have wanted to be banished from Mashiach for the sake of my brothers, my relatives according to the flesh. So his relatives according to the flesh would be natural-born Israelis, descendants of Jacob, basically, who are Yisraelites, whose is the adoption and the esteem and the covenants and the giving of the Torah and the worship and the promises, whose are the fathers, and from whom is Hamashiach according to the flesh, who is over all, Baruch of Yahuwah forever. Amen. Okay, so that is huge. So who is he grieving over? He's grieving over his natural-born flesh brothers. Now, I've heard some, and I kind of embrace it. Tim Hegg of Torah Resources is speaking and saying that really, if you are natural-born, if you are the descendant of, the literal fleshly descendant of Jacob, Israel, then you are literally born into the promises of Israel, into the promises of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the promises of the covenant. So if you're natural born, if you are literally an Israelite, it is yours, it's handed to you, and you are saved. I say saved, you are part of the people of Israel and those covenants from the moment you're born, and it's yours to lose. And that's what we witness throughout their time, from the time of, really from Jacob, but certainly through the time of Israel in the land. People were born into it, but then through their continual disobedience, disregard for Yahuwah, disregard, disinterest, just not listening, going about doing their own thing, getting interested in the ways and the methodologies of other Elohim and the gods around him, which becomes idolatry and worshiping other gods. They just didn't care. So basically, if you were born an Israelite but didn't care and ultimately crossed the line into enough disregard, disobedience, that you will ultimately be judged. You lose your position, and you will not be counted amongst the Israel to whom the promises remain, which we'll visit again when we get here. Down here in verse 7. No, okay, I didn't read far enough, but we will finish this in a second. And that stands in contrast to a Gentile person who is not born into the covenant. Instead, you would voluntarily join, because Yahushua, the Messiah, Hamashiach, has made the way for Gentiles to join by voluntary choice into the promises, the esteem, the adoption, and the covenants that belong to Israel. So if you're an Israelite, it's yours to lose. If you're a Gentile, you don't start with it, but you have the ability to voluntarily receive it, as they did even pre-Messiah, though, because they did it in the old days. You read Isaiah, and you'll see that many, the mixed multitudes, did join themselves to Israel because they recognized, they wanted the Elohim of Israel. They wanted Yahuwah. And so they joined to them. Okay, so let's then, having stated those, let's reread then who he's grieving for. He's grieving for his relatives according to the flesh, those who are natural-born Israelites. And all of Israelites are born into what? The adoption. They are born into being the choice, the children of Yahweh, the children of Elohim. They are born into that. So they are born into the adoption and the glory, the esteem, and the covenants, which are the covenant relationships, the Hesed, and the covenant loyalty issues in the covenants, and the giving of the Torah, and the worship, and the promises. And whose are the fathers? So if you're born into Israelite, you are born into the fathers and the heritage. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were the faithful fathers. And then ultimately even the sons of Jacob, because they became faithful patriarchs. These are the fathers. And as an Israelite born into it, that's their heritage. And from whom is HaMashiach according to the flesh. So from the fathers, from the covenants, from all of everything going on with Israel comes HaMashiach according to the flesh, who is over all and Baruch of Yahweh forever and ever. So as I have said elsewhere and throughout all my teachings, is that Yahushua, Jesus, he comes from the old writings. He comes from the promises, from the prophets, from all of the old writings, the Tanakh, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, comes Messiah to Israel. So HaMashiach, Jesus, is to Israel. He comes to Israel. That's who the Messiah belongs to. Not to the Gentiles. Not to the Gentiles as a body, not to a Gentile believer, but to Israel. A Gentile who wants to receive Messiah must come to Israel. Israel doesn't go to now a new covenant people of the Gentiles. The Gentiles need to come to the covenant people, the contemporary covenant people, the first covenant people of Israel. So let's keep reading though. In verse 6, however, it is not as though the word of Yahweh has failed, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. Neither are they all children because they are the seed of Abraham, but in Yitzchak your seed shall be called. That is, those who are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of Elohim, but the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. For this is the word of promise. At this time I shall come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only so, but Ribkah having conceived by one, our father Yitzchak, Isaac. Yet before they were born or had done any good or evil, in order that the purpose of Elohim according to choice might stand, not of works, but of him who calls, it was said to her, the greater shall serve the lesser. As it has been written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. Okay, so let's go back up and start reading through this. First of all, those, as I said, those who are, in my other teachings, you will know that Israel has failed. Israel as a nation has failed. Natural Israel has failed, which is what he's saying here. However, it's not as though the word of Yahweh has failed. Because while Israel failed in their side of the covenant, Yahweh did not fail. And always among Israel was the remnant of Israel, the believers, those who sought Yahuwah, sought and obeyed him and followed him, his people, those chosen, those of the promise. As Paul will teach in Galatians, in the two, in his allegory that he's drawing between Hagar and the covenant of flesh, which is the first covenant that they didn't keep, versus the promises to Sarah and Isaac, and through Jacob. Esau representing the flesh and the failure, and Jacob representing the success in obedience and in the spirit. So he is differentiating here in Romans, like he did in Galatia, in the Galatians, in the letter to the Galatians, and that there are people who are born of the flesh of Israel, but they are not going to be counted the children of Israel. Only the children of the promise are going to be reckoned as seed. Who are the children of the promise? Those who, allegorically, he's identifying with Sarah and Isaac, but it really boils down to those whom have made Yahweh their Elohim, that they pursue him, they have the right heart toward him, they love him, they obey his instructions, which are his Torah, his commands, whether they are part of Torah or part of any command that is ever given. That is the promised seed. That will be true Israel. That will be the Israel that is resurrected. Everybody who is not counted up here in verse 8, everybody who's going to be children of the flesh and of Israel, they're going to be counted as the children of flesh and not the children of Elohim. They will not take part in that first resurrection. They will take part in the second resurrection, where they are judged. Going back up here to verse 6, for they are not all Israel who are of Israel. So not all Israel, meaning this is the promised Israel right here. This is the promise. This is the Israel that will be regathered from the four corners of the earth, and from, if they're living, and from Sheol if they've died. This is the promised Israel. But the second Israel is natural-born Israel. They are not all going to be counted amongst the Israel that will be regathered. The promises of Israel that we're talking about up here, the Israelites, whose is the adoption, the esteem, the covenants, and the giving of Torah, and the worship and the promises. All this was handed to these unbelievers of Israel, but they lost it. The ones that retained it will become the Israel that, the Israel that is the child of promise, and whose are the fathers, and from whom is the Hamashiach according to the flesh, who is over all. So to believing Israel, the remnant of Israel, belong all of these things, and the Hamashiach, the Messiah. They belong to the believing Israel. He and they do not belong to all of natural-born Israel, because they have forfeited. They have forfeited that right to their place as Israel through disobedience, through just simply not wanting and caring about their Elohim. So neither are they children, because they are of the seed of Abraham. So even though they are of the seed of Abraham, they are not going to be counted amongst the children of the Father, the children of Yahweh. Neither are they all children, because they are the seed of Abraham. So even though they were born as seed of Abraham, they will not be counted as the children. They will not all partake. I'm being redundant, but I'm trying to drive the point home that they will not all take place. So take place in the resurrection. They will not take place in the regathering. In fact, the vast majority of Israel will not take place in that resurrection. Only true Israel, those who are in Yitzhak, shall your seed be called. So Israel. So what would be the seed of Abraham be called? The ones that are going to be called of Israel would be the seed of Israel, which would be Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then all of their descendants. It would have been everybody at the time. Everybody's seed is their posterity since then. But in Yitzhak, your seed shall be called. So only if those who are of the belief, of the true faith, of what we would call faith and belief today in Yahushua, because really That's the dividing line. Those who are not gathered of Israel never believed Yahuwah. Prior to Messiah coming, they never believed Yahuwah. Those who believed in Yahuwah and had faith in Yahuwah were going to be counted amongst the believers. Those who did not have faith in Yahuwah will be counted amongst the unredeemed, the Gentiles. They will just take their place in the judgment. So in Yitzchak, those who are believers, are the seed of Abraham, will be called in belief, in faith. They will be the ones who are counted the children. They will be the children counted as the children of promise and reckoned as the seed. Those who are in Yitzchak and of faith and belief. Those who are not of Yitzchak and faith and belief, those of Abraham who are not going to be counted the children because they are the children of the flesh. Hagar, according to Paul's allegory in Galatians. So those of the children of flesh, these are not going to be counted as the children of Elohim when the time comes. They're going to be counted just right alongside all of the Gentiles who are going to be judged at that time. So in essence, while we have the identified Israel as the children and the people, the chosen people of Elohim, that's how they're going to be identified. But in practice, from pre-Messiah and post-Messiah, time of Messiah and post-Messiah, it really all boils down to, if you want Yahuwah, you will receive his son. If you want the Father, if you want the true, everlasting, unbegot, if you want the Father, you will also want the Son, and you will receive the Son. And that has never not existed. So in essence, everybody who has believed and operated in faith and pursued Yahuwah in obedience will all be counted as the children of the promise. The children of the promise will be reckoned as the seed. So everybody of Israel, everybody, even, I'm going to say Enoch. Enoch wasn't a child of Abraham. He wasn't of the descendant of Abraham, but is he not going to be reckoned as the seed? No, he'll be reckoned as the seed too. And he'll be raised up because he was a believer in Yahuwah, in faith and obedience, in all of the requisites that have always existed. If you want Yahuwah, and you will receive Yahuwah and pursue Yahuwah and do the things Yahuwah calls you to do, then you have always been reckoned as the seed. You will always be reckoned as the seed. So not only was it pre-Israel, but it includes the people of Israel, born of natural descendants of Abraham, who stayed and didn't lose that position, stayed in the promise in faith and belief. And it's going to include all the Gentiles, even during the time of Israel, that joined themselves to Israel. And it's going to include the Gentiles post-Messiah, from the Messiah's coming, as his light went out to the Gentiles, to call the Gentiles. Because part of that light is the dissemination. It is the scattering of Israel from the land out into the world of the Gentiles, so that the messaging is taken, the gospel, the gospel of the reign of Elohim, which belongs to Israel. It belongs to Yahushua, the Messiah of Israel. It belongs to Israel. And that message has gone out to the world and has been received by the world. And all of the Gentiles who will receive that message in belief and faith join Israel and become participants in the same thing. Okay, and just to sum it up, in case I was not, what I've done so far has been too disjointed and not coherent enough. Let me see if I can successfully sum it up and close this out. It is to Israel that the adoption is given, the esteem is given, the covenants are given, and the giving of the Torah and the worship and the promises, whose are the fathers and whose is Hamashiach, the Messiah, according to the flesh. So it is to Israel that all these things belong, not to a different people, not to a new covenant people. It's to Israel. And and to everybody who wishes to join Israel, which would be today the Gentiles who will join to Israel and receive the adoption and receive the esteem and receive the covenants, where we, according to the Ephesians, where once we were far off from it all, now we have drawn near and joined in all of these things. But we need to differentiate even amongst the bloodlines of Israel, same as we would with Gentiles. Gentiles never had it. If you do not receive Yahweh, you are condemned already. You do not have the hope. You will be counted amongst and judged alongside of all of the Gentiles. But again, just quickly say that the Gentiles have the opportunity to join voluntarily Israel. However, if you are of the bloodlines of Israel, having been born into the covenant people, you are still required to believe and have faith and to follow Yahuwah. If you do not, all these promises are yours to lose. If you turn away, if you disobey, if you have no interest in Yahuwah, and you do not operate in belief, and you do not have faith, which all, both then and now, are represented by how much you're going to follow His ways and that you really want to be part of His way of doing things. So you have to start realigning yourself to His ways. If you're of the bloodlines of Israel, you start in there, but if you do not follow that, you lose that position. And the promises, all these promises in the word of Yahweh is not lost. It did not fail, because there will always be the covenant people of Israel, the remnant of Israel who retained faith and belief. It will extend to today's world, where we have believers, Israelite and Gentile alike, who are operating in the Spirit and pursuing Him. However, so the word of Yahweh does not fail to those people. All these promises, everything that has been promised, is still to us. But for the bloodlines of Israel, they are not all of the promise who are of the bloodlines of Israel. They are not all of the promise, which is, they are not all of Israel, who are the bloodlines of Israel. So these are the promise. These are the Israel that remains true and faithful, of belief and faith, that receive the promises. And this is the Israel who disregards belief and faith and does not operate in disfaith and become just part of the world. Neither are they all children, because they are the seed of Abraham. What are the children? These are the same thing as the remnant of Israel. These are the children of Elohim, the children of the Father, because they are these are the children of the Father, but they do not get to be called children just because they are the seed of Abraham. They are only going to be called children if they operate in faith and belief like Yitzchak did. And through that faith and belief of Yitzchak, believing Yisrael, their seed shall be called. So all of the seed of Israel, everybody who is bloodline of Israel, who will operate in belief in faith and remain the remnant of Israel, it is to them, they're the ones that will be called when the time comes, when Yahushua comes a second time and gathers us all from where we've been. All right. So let me just finish out here. That is that those are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of Elohim just because they're the children of flesh. Only the children of the promise are reckoned as the seed. So only the children of the promise are those who are found in Yitzchak, and those who would be considered the remnant of Israel are going to be reckoned as the seed that shall be called. Okay, so we are differentiating Israel. If you were natural born Israel, what the world likes to call today Jew, but that's a too limiting of a statement. It also conjures a whole lot of baggage. It brings a whole lot of thoughts into what it means to be a Jew. But if you are Israel or Jew, just because you are of that line does not make you saved, does not make you part of the final promise, does not make you part of the promised gathering. Only if you operate in faith and belief will you ever be accounted, no matter what your heritage is, Gentile or Israel, Only if you operate in belief and faith. Prior to Messiah, it's belief and faith in the Messiah pre his coming, and belief and faith in his Father. Just like it is at the Messiah having coming, now it's belief and faith in the Messiah that has come and his Father. But all along, from the days of Enoch and the days of Adam, all the way to the end, it will be all those who will pursue those two, the Messiah, the hope of the Messiah, the reality of the Messiah, and the Father of the Messiah, both pre and post his coming. Only those who believe and have faith will be counted amongst the seed. I'm sorry, I know I've beat this to death. Thank you, and may you be Baruch.